Okay. Hi, my name is Latija, and I am going to be talking to you guys about a comic that I chose. It's called Cut. Basically, this was first of all, this comic is by Gilbert Smith. Okay, he is solely the creative team, meaning he wrote the story, he did the art, he chose for it to be black and white. He's the publisher, all that good stuff. It's all solely Gilbert Smith. Um, but basically, this comic is about four actresses that audition for the lead in a biopic about their favorite movie star. And it's basically kind of like, a role to die for. And he actually wrote a little synopsis about it, saying that it was based off of 1980s slasher movie inspired stories. So I'll actually put a link in this video to his Kickstarter so you guys can read a little bit about that. But yeah, it's based off 1980s slasher movies. Just a couple to name a few. You think of more along the lines of, Maniac, or The Stepfather, the 1980s version, not the 2000s version. But okay, the comic is about 32 pages long. Um, at first glance, just looking at the cover, I actually thought this was going to be a graphic novel when I saw it on Indie's Planet, but it's actually a manga. So I was kind of a little indifferent about that, but I guess I just had to actually read the comic to see, why it would be considered a manga, but I thought it would be a graphic novel. But moving on. Um so we want to get into the acts of the story right now. The first act, you kind of just see a Hollywood, um what's the word I'm looking for? Not stadium, but like a Hollywood audition room, wherever you want to call it. I can't think of that word to say in my life, but it's in Hollywood. It's like an audition room where where you would go to audition for movies and TV shows and things that take place. Um, so as you can see, the drawing is very simple. It's black and white, which I personally love black and white. So that's a nice little touch on it. So it's not too much, but it's not, you know, super professional, but this works. So this is the beginning of Act One, actually. Um, when you look at where um, Act One ends, you actually see this is two of the actresses that are going at it. You see the actress has some sort of a sharp tool getting ready to stab the other girl in the eye. Very gory, very scary. Slasher, if you want to say. That's why it's based off slashers, because this is what typically happens. That's basically how Act One ends, and we go into Act Two, and you see that this is actually two of the actresses going through a scene for the audition, and you see the director, and it gets a little intensified right there in that part because you actually think something's about to happen, within the first act, but it's actually an audition scene. So that was the beginning of Act Two. How Act Two ends, you see two of the actresses, and you see one actress being put into a grave. You see that it's nighttime. Um, you see two silhouettes of the two other girls standing outside of a hole they have dug, where they have the other actress laying in. So basically, at this point, they're just trying to get rid of the competition and just kind of, um, cancel each other out, so to speak. That's basically what's happening at the end of Act Two. And then we go into the beginning of Act Three. Basically, they have made a pact to go into the audition, and whoever wins, it's all good. And then once you get to the bottom of that page in particular, you see that they begin to go at it again for this particular role. So it's basically become a fight for survival, if you will. This particular role is having them trying to rid of each other literally so that they can, get the star role. And that's basically the beginning of Act 3. And then we go to the end of Act 3, where you see the last one standing, Sarah, has taken out the last of her competition, and the director basically says that she's perfect and she looks like the actress on the film poster of the movie, and in which case she has won because she literally has killed her competition, literally. And that is basically the end of Act 3. Now, you would think that the story is about the four actresses, which it kind of is because throughout the comic they're trying to get rid of each other so that they can win that number one spot. But really, I felt like it was a little bit of the director's story too because there has to be a goal, and his goal is to try to find the star of his movie, and while as the actresses' goals were to basically get this main role, and that was basically it. So I felt like when you say whose story it is, it's a little bit of the actresses and the director, even though you don't see him a lot, the director, because he comes in and out. But I felt like it was a little bit of both. Um, the story arc, I think is very solid. You see, the actresses they try out for the role, and they're willing to do whatever they have to do to get rid of it, to not get rid of it. I got a little tongue tied there, but they're willing to do whatever they need to do to win this role. Point blank, period. Whatever it takes. If that means killing the competition, that's what they would do. Sarah is one of the main characters. Um, she is seen as being very competitive from the start of the story, and she is the one that is left standing at the very end when the director comes in and he says, "You're perfect. You look just like the star on the movie poster. You're it. You have the main role." And she pretty much won. The story, it primarily takes place in LA. Although some of the pictures are in black and white, you can tell when they are either in an audition room or they're outside or they're in an apartment building. So the transitions are very effective, and I feel like the art in this comic, it was very important, being that it's black and white, because you kind of had to make your pictures, look a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Make them look a little bit visual, because with black and white, sometimes you can't really tell what's what. So you have to make sure that your art stands out when you're doing black and white. I feel it's just an opinion. Um, McLeod actually works with panel to panel transitions. I say my comic is kind of not really panel to panel because I feel like the pages they're like organized into sections, and each page is different. Like maybe one page has like maybe three boxes that may go horizontal, but it's very organized in a way. Um, I feel like panel to panel is effective just to make sure that your comic flows and it makes sense, and that your reader is able to, keep up with the story and everything is, moving in a certain direction. Um, Cut has made use of the mini comic. I say this is effective in terms of size. You could probably like stick it in your pocket or your bag. So if you're like on a train or on a bus or something like that, you can just pull it out and just, go ahead, just want to read a little bit of it or stick it back in your pocket, stick it back in your bag. And as you can see in this picture, it looks like it was handmade, which I think is a nice touch because you could tell that he really put a lot into it. Um, so yeah, the mini comic, I would say it was a great way for him to distribute Cut the way he did off of Kickstarter. Um, It's very easy for the reader to follow along in terms of how art is formatted with the text, and it isn't just all jumbled together. That's how I feel like Cut is formatted in a sense. Like even though it's not panel to panel, with each page is just organized in a way where you're like, okay, this happens, and you can follow along, and it's good. You don't get confused as to where the text starts or where it ends. You know, you're able to follow along with each page. So I think that's a good thing. Now, if you're a fan of horror like myself, I definitely would recommend this to a classmate. Um, as I was reading Cut, I feel like the story kind of played out in my head like a movie. Like I got a visual of how this would look if I was to go to a movie theater and was watching this exact story play out on a big screen. I feel like, with some of my classmates who are in the same program that I am in, when you read things like I do, you kind of get a visual in your head of what's going on. Because, yeah, I do that with literally anything that I read with any story. Um, so I feel like I would definitely recommend this to my classmates, because it lets you be creative in a way. Because when you're envisioning this, your vision might be different from my vision as to what I see when I read it. So, it plays on your creative thinking a little bit, I feel like. So I would definitely recommend this to one of my classmates. Now, as far as recommending this to my friends, um, I would not. One, I don't have that many friends. And two, they are not into reading comics at all. They don't read, period. So me even bringing up a comic book to them is just like, okay, why would you tell me this? I'm not gonna read this, so it'll pretty much be a waste of time. So yeah, I would definitely not recommend this to my friends. Now, not to speak bad on my friends, because they're cool people. They just don't, they just choose not to read a lot. Um, One last little fun fact before I wrap this up. Up until we read Mouse in our previous class, I never would have picked up a comic book. It was something that I didn't see as interesting or entertaining. And I know there are movies out there that have been, adapted from comic books. Like of course like Batman and Superman and all of that. But I never, ever, ever, ever would have read a comic book before taking this class or my previous class that we read Mouse in. So I don't know. I feel like maybe I need to just start, reading a little bit more comic books, and maybe I'll really be into them. Who knows? I'm always looking for something new to read, but yeah. So that was Cut by Gilbert Gasly Smith. Again, I will put that Kickstarter link in this video so you guys can go look at what he said when he was writing this, or where he got the idea from. And thank you guys for your time.